The battlefield of Thalkar Ridge was silent in a strange and heavy way, as if the world itself held its breath. Smoke rose in slow gray lines from broken machines, burned trees, and shattered rocks. The air smelled of metal, dust, and something older fear mixed with exhaustion. The war between humans and the Varathi Dominion had turned this land into a graveyard of old hopes and new mistakes. But in the middle of that silence stood one human soldier who refused to fall back. Commander Rylan Ward tightened the grip on his cracked helmet and looked around. His squad had already retreated, pushed back by the wave of Varathi soldiers who now held the ridge. Rylan had stayed behind because someone had to. The Varathi were preparing to move further into the valley, where thousands of civilians were hiding in underground huts. If he didn't slow them down, even for a few minutes, the valley would be lost. And Rylan was not the kind of man who ran away when others depended on him. He stepped forward, boots crunching on broken stone. His breathing slow, but steady. He was tired. His body hurt everywhere. His uniform was torn in too many places to count. But his eyes were sharp, focused on the tall, glowing figure standing across from him. Lady Saris Velrune, noble warrior of the Varathi Dominion, stood proudly with her spear-like energy staff resting on one shoulder. She was taller than any human Rylan had ever seen, her skin a luminous silver blue that shimmered even in the dusty air. Armor shaped like sharp crystal plates covered her body, and her long white hair fell behind her like a banner of authority. Her species was known for strength, discipline, and unbroken victory. Humans whispered her name as if she were a myth. She looked at Rylan not with anger, but with a kind of curious amusement. A small smile touched her lips, the kind of smile a teacher gives when watching a child attempt something impossible. "So," she said, voice calm and smooth like flowing water, "you stayed behind. You humans surprise me sometimes." She walked in a slow circle around him, her gaze sharp and assessing. "Your squad is gone. Your machines are broken. Your energy weapon is half dead." Rylan didn't move. He kept his battered rifle pointed toward the ground, not in surrender, but in a sign that the next move was hers. Saris tilted her head and let out a soft laugh. "Tell me, human, did you truly think you could defeat me?" Her words echoed across the empty ridge. Any normal soldier might have trembled or stepped back, but Rylan simply looked up at her and gave a small, tired smile of his own. "I don't need to defeat you," he said quietly. "I only need to stop you." The words were simple, almost gentle. But something in his tone made Saris's smile fade. She narrowed her eyes, unable to understand why a human in such a hopeless position still carried such calm strength in his voice. She lifted her staff, its crystal edge glowing with bright blue light. "Then show me," she said. "Show me how a single human thinks he can stop a Varathi noble." Rylan slowly raised his rifle. But he didn't fire. He waited for the moment. The small opening. The chance he knew she would give, even without meaning to. He was not stronger. He was not faster. But he understood something she didn't. Humans didn't win because they were perfect. They won because they refused to give up. Saris dashed forward, her movement so fast it blurred. Rylan threw himself sideways, her strike missing him by inches and sending sparks blasting off the stone. She raised her weapon again, expecting the human to panic, but Rylan spun behind her, firing a short burst. His shots hit her armor, not enough to injure her, but enough to make her step back. She looked surprised. "You react quickly," she said calmly. "Too quickly for your kind." Rylan didn't answer. He had no interest in impressing her. He only wanted to hold her here. Saris attacked again, this time faster, sharper, with the controlled grace of a warrior who had trained since childhood. Rylan dodged some strikes, blocked others with his rifle, and rolled across the broken ground when he had no other choice. His movements were messy compared to her elegant precision. But they worked. Humans were unpredictable, and Rylan used that unpredictability like a weapon. Blow after blow crashed around him. The ground shook from her strength. Sweat ran into his eyes. His breathing grew heavier. But he stayed on his feet. Ceres stepped back again, her brows lowering. She had fought many humans during the war. They usually broke after the first 20 seconds against her. But this one, this exhausted, injured soldier, refused to fall. "Who are you?" she asked softly, not mocking anymore. "Just a man," Ryland said. "A man doing his job." She stared at him for a long moment. She thought about finishing him quickly, as she always did, but something inside her hesitated. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure how strong she truly was, or how strong a human could be. She lowered her weapon a few inches, wondering if he would try to escape. Instead, Ryland did the unexpected. He charged straight toward her. Caught off guard, Ceres swung too late. Ryland slid under her strike and slammed his shoulder into her side. The impact made her stumble backward, her boots sliding on loose gravel. She quickly regained balance, but her eyes widened. No human had ever touched her in battle before, not because she was untouchable, but because no human had ever dared get close enough. "You risk your life without hesitation," she said, breathing a little faster. "Why?" "Because the people behind me don't deserve to die," he answered. "If I slow you down, they live. That's all that matters." Ceres felt something shift in her chest, a strange pressure she had never felt during battle. She had always believed humans fought with emotion rather than logic. She had always thought emotion was weakness. But watching Ryland stand there, covered in dust, chest rising and falling, eyes still sharp with purpose, she wondered if emotion could also be strength. The wind picked up, lifting small clouds of dust between them. Ryland stepped forward again, even though his legs shook. Ceres raised her weapon again, her expression more serious than before. This time, when they fought, she didn't hold back. Her staff flashed with blue energy as she struck. Ryland blocked with everything he had. His rifle snapped in half under the force of one blow, and he dropped the broken pieces. He grabbed a metal plate from the ground and used it as a shield, sparks flying as her weapon clashed against it. She swung low. He jumped back. She swung high. He ducked and kicked at her legs. Both of them grew more tired with every passing moment. Stone cracked, dust rose. Echoes of their blows filled the ridge like rolling thunder. Finally, they clashed in the center of the battleground. Ceres swung with full power, and Ryland pushed forward with all the strength left in his body. The explosion of energy knocked them both backward, sending them stumbling apart. Ceres dug her boots into the ground to stop herself from falling. Ryland ended up on one knee, coughing dust from his lungs. For a few heartbeats, neither moved. Ceres lifted her head. For the first time in her life, she felt breathless. Not because she was hurt, she wasn't, but because the human had forced her to fight seriously. And that had never happened. "You," she whispered, unable to find the right words. "You are not like the others." Ryland looked up, sweat dripping from his face, and managed a small, tired smile. "Humans are full of surprises." Ceres stared at him, and slowly, a new understanding began forming in her mind. She had come here expecting to crush a weak enemy and finish her mission. Instead, she had found something else, something she had never expected. The Varathi Dominion had always taught that humans were inferior, emotional creatures who lacked discipline and proper strength. But the human standing before her was different. He was tired, injured, outmatched, and yet he refused to retreat. He fought not for glory but for the lives behind him, and his courage didn't crack even when facing someone who should have been unbeatable. Ceres stepped back, not out of fear but out of confusion. For a long moment she simply watched him, the wind lifting her white hair, as if the world itself waited for her decision. "I will withdraw," she said slowly, "not because you defeated me, but because I must reconsider what I have learned today." Ryland didn't chase her. He didn't have the strength, even if he wanted to. He stayed on one knee, watching her walk away across the ridge. Saris paused once, turning her head slightly as if studying him one last time. "What are you?" she whispered, the question barely carried by the wind. Rylan didn't answer. He simply stood again, even though it hurt, and watched the sun break through the smoke-filled sky. He had not won. And deep in her heart, though she would never admit it yet, Saris Velrune realized one thing clearly for the first time. She had been wrong about humans. 4 days after the Battle of Thalkar Ridge, the war zone had grown strangely quiet. Human scouts reported that the Varathi forces had paused their advance. It confused the commanders, but none of them knew the real reason. Only one person truly understood why the Dominion had slowed down, and he was sitting alone inside a half-collapsed bunker, slowly cleaning the dust off his damaged armor. Commander Rylan Ward leaned against a cracked wall, watching the flickering lights of the bunker generator. His body still hurt from his duel with Lady Saris Velrune, but the pain didn't bother him as much as the question that kept spinning in his mind. Why did she leave? She could have defeated him, if she wanted. She had the strength, the skill, the weapon, and the command. But at the last moment, she stepped back instead. She spared him. She even seemed confused. Rylan shook his head slowly. He didn't understand her. He only knew one thing. Her hesitation had saved thousands of lives. That thought gave him a strange feeling of respect, mixed with curiosity. He remembered the way she looked at him, as if she couldn't believe a human had fought her to a standstill. Maybe she learned something that day, he thought. Maybe this war wasn't as simple as she believed. Outside the bunker, the wind carried cold sand across the valley. A few soldiers walked by, whispering rumors that an elite Varathi noble had taken interest in a human warrior. No one said Rylan's name, but the rumors grew fast. He ignored them and focused on repairing what he could, even though most of his gear was beyond saving. Meanwhile, far across the ridge inside a shining metallic fortress, Lady Saris Velrune stood in her private chamber, staring at a holographic replay of their duel. The room was quiet and filled with soft blue lights that reflected off her armor. But her mind was a storm. She replayed the scene again, the way the human dodged, the way he blocked her strikes with whatever he could grab, the way he kept fighting even when he could no longer win. She watched his eyes, the same calm bravery, every single time. "Impossible," she whispered, pausing the recording. Her advisors stood behind her, confused by her sudden obsession. Varathi nobles rarely studied human opponents. It was considered unnecessary. Humans were viewed as lesser fighters, emotional and short-lived. But Saris was not acting like any noble. One advisor bowed respectfully. "Lady Saris, we should prepare for your next mission. The High Command wishes for you to advance toward the valley." "No," Saris said, her voice firm and steady. "Not yet." The advisors exchanged nervous glances. One of them stepped forward and asked carefully, "Is this delay because of the human?" Saris turned her sharp eyes toward him. "That human fought me evenly for several minutes. No human has ever done that. I must understand him." Another advisor frowned. "He is only one soldier. He cannot change the outcome of the war." Saris shook her head slowly. "You all look at strength only in numbers. But strength can also be in choices. Humans fight with emotions. Yes, but their emotions give them a power we do not have. That human, he fought for people he never met. He fought, even after losing everything." The advisors fell silent. They had never heard a noble speak of humans with such seriousness. Saris dismissed them with a wave of her hand. She needed no more argument. She had made her decision. There was something she needed to confirm, and she would not rest until she did. 2 days later, just before sunrise, Rylan heard footsteps outside the bunker. He reached for his weapon, but it was only his friend, Corporal Dina Voss, carrying a data tablet and a small pouch of food. "You look terrible, Commander," she joked gently as she handed him the meal. Rylan gave a tired half-smile. Thanks. Any news from the scouts? Dina nodded. Yes, and you won't like it. The Varathi noblewoman, the tall one with the white hair, she was seen again. She's been asking questions about you. Rylan froze. What kind of questions? Your name, your rank, your background. And, she hesitated, unsure how to say it. She asked why humans don't fear death. Rylan blinked slowly. That wasn't the question of an enemy planning to kill him. That was the question of someone trying to understand him. Why would she want to know that? Dina asked. Rylan didn't answer. He had no idea how to explain the strange feeling that settled in his chest. He remembered Saris's eyes. No hatred in them. Only confusion and curiosity. Whatever she was thinking, she wasn't acting like a soldier following orders. She was acting like someone searching for meaning. That evening, Rylan stepped out onto the small entrance of the bunker and stared at the sunset. The sky glowed orange and gold, stretching out over the valley. He thought about his home, his family, and his promise to protect people, even if it meant standing alone. Maybe Saris had never seen a human fight with that reason before. Maybe that's why she hesitated. Far away, standing on the edge of a high cliff, Saris stared at the same sunset. Her armor reflected the fading light, making her look like a glowing statue carved from crystal. She had left her fortress without any guards. She had not told anyone where she was going. She only knew she had to meet the human again. She wanted answers. She wanted to know why he fought like that. She wanted to understand why he didn't fear her. The next morning, Rylan was scouting near an abandoned settlement when he felt a disturbance in the air. A gentle vibration spread across the ground, and he turned instantly, rifle raised. Lady Saris Velrune stood a short distance away, her posture tall and calm. Rylan lowered his weapon only slightly. He wasn't foolish enough to trust her, but he wasn't surprised that she had come. You, he said quietly. Saris nodded once. Human. The wind brushed past them, carrying the dust between their feet. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Saris stepped a little closer, but kept a respectful distance. I came for answers, she said. Rylan raised an eyebrow. Answers? You fought me when you had no chance. You should have surrendered. You should have run. Why did you resist? Rylan looked around at the ruins. Walls half broken, roofs collapsed, burned pieces of metal everywhere. Because I didn't want your army to reach the valley. People are hiding there. I fight so they can live. That's it. Saris studied his face carefully. That is emotion. Emotion is weakness. Rylan shook his head. Not always. Sometimes emotion gives us strength. Saris frowned, clearly thinking. It was the first time anyone had ever challenged the beliefs she had grown up with. She remembered how Rylan had stood even when his weapon was broken. She remembered how he threw himself into danger without hesitation. What are humans really? She asked softly, almost to herself. Rylan laughed lightly, despite the situation. Not sure anyone knows that. We're just human. We try. We make mistakes. But we care. Saris absorbed his words in silence. For the first time in her life, someone explained humanity to her. Not through war reports or enemy files, but through honest truth. She lowered herself to sit on a broken piece of stone, and Rylan sat across from her. Two warriors from opposite sides of a brutal war now sat together like two people, simply trying to understand each other. Saris looked at him again. You said you only needed to stop me, but you did more than that. You made me hesitate. You made me question myself. That has never happened. Rylan met her eyes calmly. Maybe that's good. Maybe this war doesn't need to go on forever. Her expression softened slightly, just a little, but enough to show that her thoughts had started to change. She looked at him with a strange mix of confusion and respect. But before she could speak again, a sudden sharp sound echoed through the valley, a focused energy pulse. Saris's eyes widened instantly. "They're here," she said quickly. "My people." Rylan stood up. "No," she answered, her voice tense for the first time. "Hunters. Sent by High Command." Rylan felt a chill run through his spine. "Hunters? Why?" Saris looked at him with a heavy seriousness. "Because I spoke with you. Because I hesitated. To them, that means disloyalty." "And they're coming for you?" Rylan asked. "And for you," she said. "If they find us together, they will kill us both." The sound grew louder, closer. Rylan's heart picked up pace. Saris stood tall again, her weapon glowing. But this time, she wasn't facing him. She was standing beside him. Rylan nodded slowly, accepting something he had not expected. He was about to fight not against her, but with her. Saris took a deep breath. "Human, I do not understand you. But I know one thing." She looked directly into his eyes. "I cannot let them take you. Vun. I talked to his eye. Vun nan. Rylan tightened his grip on his weapon. "Then we stand together." Saris gave one small nod, respectful, almost grateful. And in that moment, something irreversible happened. The noble warrior who once asked if a human could defeat her now realized the truth she never saw coming. She didn't come to test him. She came because he had already changed something inside her. And the hunters were about to learn what she learned first. No one should underestimate a human. Night settled slowly over the abandoned settlement, covering the broken houses and empty streets in a soft blue darkness. The wind carried the dry smell of dust and old wooden beams. Rylan stood beside Saris, both listening to the echoing pulses in the distance. The sound of the hunters drew closer with every passing second. The air itself felt tense, like it was waiting for something important to happen. Rylan gripped his rifle, but he knew it would not be enough against elite Varathi hunters. They were faster, stronger, and equipped with weapons far beyond what the remaining human soldiers carried. Saris understood the danger even better than he did. Her eyes were sharp, her expression serious in a way that showed she was preparing herself for more than just a fight. "They will not talk," she said softly. "Hunters do not give warnings. They only follow orders." Rylan nodded. "I figured that much." Saris stepped forward, her white hair lifting slightly in the cold wind. She raised her glowing staff for a moment, only to turn it off again. That small action told Rylan she was thinking, calculating, trying to find a solution. "Are they here because you hesitated on the ridge?" Rylan asked. Saris looked down at the ground for a moment. "Yes. In the Dominion, hesitation is seen as weakness. They believe I must be corrected, or replaced." Rylan frowned. "Because you didn't kill me?" "Because I questioned myself," she answered quietly. "And because I came to you again. That is unforgivable to them." Rylan stepped closer, speaking calmly even though his heart beat faster. "We can leave. Move toward the canyon. Maybe we can outrun." "No," Saris said. "Hunters can track anything. If we flee, they will chase us for days, and they will hit the human valley next." She turned her eyes toward him. "They know you matter to me now. They will use that." Rylan was quiet for a moment. He didn't ask what she meant by matter. He didn't need to. The truth was already clear in her voice, even if neither of them fully understood it yet. A faint vibration traveled through the ground. Rylan felt it under his boots. Saris felt it too. She turned her head sharply. "They are close," she whispered. Rylan raised his rifle again. "Then let's face them." Saris looked at him, a small but real expression appearing in her silver blue eyes, something between worry and respect. "You are not afraid?" "No," Rylan said simply. "Not as long as we face them together." Her eyes widened for a moment. A soft breath escaped her. Together, she repeated. A moment later, 3 Varathi hunters emerged from the darkness. Their armor was darker than Ceres's crystal plates, shaped with sharp edges meant for silent killing. Their steps barely made a sound. Each carried a narrow, hook-like weapon glowing with bright red energy. Their eyes held no emotion, only cold purpose. Rylan raised his rifle instantly. Ceres stepped in front of him, her staff lighting up with a strong blue glow. One hunter pointed his weapon at Ceres. "Lady Velrune," he said in a flat, echoing voice. "You have disobeyed orders." Ceres did not answer. "You stood against your duty. You spared a human. You protected him. And now you act beside him." The hunter's voice never changed, but the words cut like a blade. "Your loyalty to the Dominion has ended." Rylan took a step forward. She didn't betray anyone. She made a choice. The hunter turned his face toward Rylan. "Human. You speak without permission." Rylan aimed directly at his chest. "I don't need permission." A flash of red light shot toward him, but Ceres blocked it with her staff, creating a burst of blue sparks. "Enough," Ceres said with a strong and steady voice. "If you want him, you must go through me." The hunters didn't hesitate. They attacked in a blur. Rylan fired at the first one, but the hunter dodged faster than any soldier Rylan had ever seen. Ceres struck with her staff, blocking 2 blows at the same time. Energy sparks burst around her. She moved with incredible speed and precision, but even she struggled to keep up. The hunters fought like shadows, silent, deadly, without emotion. One hunter slipped behind Ceres and swung right at Rylan's head. Rylan ducked just in time and rolled to the side. He fired at the ground to kick up dust, forcing the hunter to step back. Another red strike swiped across Rylan's shoulder armor, cutting it open. Pain shot through him, but he clenched his teeth and stood his ground. Ceres saw the injury and felt something heavy tighten inside her chest. "Stay behind me," she shouted. Rylan shook his head. "Not happening." Ceres blocked 3 rapid attacks, pushing the hunters back. But she realized quickly that her strength alone wasn't enough. The hunters were trained to bring down nobles. And here she was, trying to survive while also protecting a human she barely knew. One hunter aimed a killing strike at her chest. Rylan ran forward, slamming into her side just in time to knock her out of the way. The red energy strike missed her heart and scraped her armor instead. She gasped in shock, staring at him. "You risked yourself? For me?" "Guess you're not the only one who can do that," he said with a short breath. Her expression changed shock, confusion, and something deeper. Something new. Something she had never felt in battle. The hunters regrouped. One spoke again. "You defend each other. You are both targets now." Rylan looked at Ceres. Ceres looked at Rylan. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone in a fight. Ceres tightened her grip on her staff. "Then let them come." The battle exploded again. Ceres took the front, striking with bright blue arcs of energy that lit the dark valley. Rylan covered her back, shooting carefully and moving quickly to avoid direct strikes. They worked together with surprising unity, her strength and grace combined with his speed and instinct. The hunters grew more aggressive. One leaped from a roof, aiming for Ceres's throat. Rylan shot him mid-air, knocking him off balance long enough for Ceres to smash him into the ground. Another hunter swung at Rylan's legs. Ceres blocked the strike, but the force sent her stumbling. Rylan grabbed her arm, steadying her. Their eyes met for one sharp moment. No words were needed. They moved again. The last hunter jumped toward Rylan with full force. Rylan raised his rifle, but the hunter knocked it away easily, lifting his red blade to strike. Rylan braced for impact, but Ceres moved faster than she ever had before. She stepped between them, blocking the full force of the hunter's strike with her staff. The energy crackled violently, pushing her back. But she didn't let go. "You will not touch him," she said through clenched teeth. Ryland stepped beside her, took a broken metal pipe from the ground, and smashed it against the hunter's helmet. The hunter stumbled, giving Cirrus the opening she needed. She struck him hard across the chest, and he fell to the ground with a heavy crash. When the last hunter stopped moving, silence returned to the valley. Cirrus breathed heavily, her armor cracked, her hair messy and dusty. Ryland's chest rose and fell quickly, and blood trickled from a cut near his shoulder. They stood there, side by side, surrounded by broken pieces of battle. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Cirrus turned her head toward him, her voice softer than it had ever been. "You saved my life." "You saved mine," Ryland replied. She looked down, almost as if she was struggling to understand the feeling growing inside her. "I do not know why you fought like that. You were injured, you were outmatched. But you still came." Ryland smiled tiredly. "Because you weren't alone." Cirrus stared at him with wide eyes. Something changed in her gaze. A warmth, a confusion, a realization. "I thought humans were reckless," she whispered. "I thought they fought without logic." She stepped closer. "But you fight because you care." Ryland nodded. She looked away for a moment at the fallen hunters. "The Dominion will send more, stronger ones. I cannot return to them now. They will not forgive this." Ryland's expression grew serious. "Then stay with us." Cirrus turned to him, surprised. "With humans?" "Yes," he said. "With me." For the first time in her life, a noble Varathi felt uncertain not in battle, but in her heart. She didn't fully understand the feeling, but she knew one thing clearly. She did not want to leave him. "And you would protect me?" she asked quietly. Ryland nodded. "Always." Cirrus felt a warm, unfamiliar sensation spread through her chest. She looked at him as if truly seeing him for the first time. "You changed me," she whispered. Ryland smiled gently. "You changed me too." The wind blew softly around them. The night sky seemed brighter. For a moment, the war felt far away. But Cirrus knew the truth: the next battle would be even harder. And yet, she wasn't afraid. Because now she wasn't fighting alone. The night after the battle with the hunters was long and heavy. Ryland and Cirrus rested inside an abandoned stone house that had lost half its roof. Dust covered the floor, and the air smelled of old smoke, but it was the only shelter they had. Ryland wrapped a torn piece of cloth around his injured shoulder, while Cirrus sat across from him, silently repairing a crack in her armor with a small energy tool. Neither spoke for a long time. There was too much to think about, too much that had changed in only a few hours. Cirrus finally broke the silence. "I have never fought like that before," she said softly. "Never with someone beside me." Ryland tightened the cloth around his arm and leaned back. "I've fought with good soldiers before. But fighting with you felt different." Cirrus paused her work. "Different how?" Ryland met her eyes. "Like we understood each other. Like we trusted each other without even saying it." Cirrus looked away, not because she was offended, but because something warm and confusing stirred inside her. Trust was not something she knew well. Varathi nobles trusted almost no one, not even their own families. But Ryland, a human she met only days ago, had earned her trust in ways she never expected. She cleared her throat and tried to stay composed. "Ryland," she said quietly, "I do not know what comes after this. The Dominion will not stop. They will see me as a traitor. They will see you as a threat. They will come in greater numbers." Ryland nodded. "I know. And still," she asked, "you choose to stay beside me?" "Every time," he said simply. Cirrus looked down at her hands. They trembled slightly. Not from fear of the hunters, but from the weight of everything she was feeling. She was a noble warrior, raised to show no weakness. But Rylan made something inside her soften in a way she didn't understand. Before she could speak again, a loud rumbling sound echoed across the valley. The ground vibrated, and Rylan stood up instantly. "Something's coming," he said. Saris rose beside him, holding her staff at the ready. "This sound, it is not hunters." A moment later, a bright blue light lit up the sky. It was a Varathi dropship, large, armed, and carrying more soldiers than the hunters combined. They were not trying to hide. They wanted her to know they were coming. Saris's jaw tightened as the dropship landed in the open field beyond the abandoned houses. Dozens of armored soldiers poured out, forming a line. Their armor gleamed under the moonlight. Their weapons hummed with red energy. Rylan took a deep breath. "We can't fight that many." "No," Saris said. "Not alone." Her fingers tightened on the staff. She had once been part of that army. Now she was their target. A commanding voice boomed from the front of the Varathi line. "Lady Saris Velrune, you have broken the laws of the Dominion. Step forward." Rylan stepped in front of Saris instantly. "You don't have to answer them." Saris shook her head and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I must. If I do not face them, they will destroy everything. They will target the valley next." Rylan's voice dropped. She turned to him, her silver blue eyes full of something strong and unbroken. "I will not run. Not anymore. But I will not face them alone. Either." Rylan nodded. "Then we face them together." Saris lifted her chin and walked forward with Rylan beside her. The moonlight made her armor glow faintly, and the wind swept her white hair behind her. To the Varathi soldiers, she looked like a fallen noble walking toward judgment. To Rylan, she looked like someone who had chosen to stand with him even against her own empire. The Varathi commander stepped forward. His armor was darker and heavier than the others. His voice echoed with authority. "Lady Saris, you fought with a human. You protected him. You killed our hunters. You have turned against the Dominion." Saris raised her staff. "No. I turned against blind obedience." The commander narrowed his eyes. "You disgrace your bloodline." Saris's voice remained steady. "Perhaps my bloodline needed to change." Gasps rippled through the Varathi soldiers. No noble had ever spoken like that. The commander lifted his weapon. "You both will be erased." Rylan stepped forward. "We're not looking for a fight, but if you attack us, we'll defend ourselves." The commander ignored him. With a sharp gesture, he signaled his soldiers. Energy weapons powered up. Lines of red light pointed directly at them. Rylan tightened his grip on his rifle. Saris stepped closer to him, their shoulders almost touching. "If we fall," she whispered. "We fall. Together." "Not falling," Rylan whispered back. "Not today." The Varathi commander raised his arm to signal the attack. But before he could bring it down, a deep rumbling sound shook the ground again. This time, it wasn't a dropship. It was several human armored rovers rolling into the field, weapons raised. Human soldiers, dozens of them, rushed out and formed a defensive line beside Rylan and Saris. Dina Voss shouted across the battlefield, "Commander, we tracked your signal and we're not letting you fight alone." The Varathi soldiers hesitated. The commander's jaw tightened. Saris glanced at Rylan. "Your people." "Like I said," Rylan smiled. "Humans care." Saris felt a strange emotion swell in her chest again, a mix of respect, warmth, and something deeper she didn't have a name for. The commander growled. "This changes nothing." "It changes everything," Rylan replied. The battle that followed was sudden and loud. Half the field erupted in blue and red energy as both sides collided. Saris fought beside Rylan, matching her movements with his. She blocked shots aimed at him, and he pulled her out of danger when a group tried to surround her. Human armored rovers fired heavy rounds, while Varathi soldiers responded with energy bursts. The night sky glowed with flashes of blue and orange, lighting up their faces as they fought. Saris moved like a storm, her staff creating bright arcs of energy that cut through enemy lines. Rylan covered her, firing carefully and moving with steady rhythm. They worked together without speaking, reading each other's motions, understanding each other's intentions. At one moment, a Varathi soldier aimed at Saris from behind. Rylan saw him first and ran toward her. Saris, down. She dropped instantly. Rylan fired over her shoulder, hitting the soldier. Saris looked up at him in surprise. "You saw him before I did," she whispered. "You taught me to watch everything," he replied quickly. Saris stood again, fighting harder than before. Something inside her fed her strength, something she had never felt in any battle. She wasn't fighting for honor. She wasn't fighting for her empire. She was fighting because she wanted to protect him. The commander realized this and charged forward with full force. His weapon crashed against Saris's staff, sending a shockwave through the ground. Sparks exploded around them as they exchanged blows. Rylan ran toward them to help, but Saris shouted, "Stay back." She met the commander strike for strike. He was strong, stronger than any hunter. But Saris fought with something new, something he did not understand. At the final moment, the commander swung his weapon at her head. Saris ducked, spun, and struck him across the chest with her full strength. His armor cracked. His weapon fell. He dropped to one knee. Rylan reached her side just as the commander collapsed onto the ground, defeated. Silence slowly spread across the field as the remaining Varathi soldiers stepped back. Without their commander, they no longer had direction. Some dropped their weapons. Others retreated into the darkness. The battle ended. Rylan lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. Saris stood beside him, her chest rising and falling but her eyes calm and steady. Human soldiers cheered in the background. The valley had been saved. The Dominion had been pushed back. But Rylan didn't look at them. His eyes were on Saris. She turned to him, and in the quiet after the battle, she finally spoke the truth she had been holding inside. "I thought I understood strength," she said softly. "I thought victory came from power, training, and obedience. But you showed me something else." Rylan stepped closer. "What did I show you?" She looked into his eyes, her voice gentle but full of emotion. "That real strength comes from choosing what you fight for and who you fight beside." Rylan smiled. "Then you learned what humans already knew." Saris took a slow breath. "And I learned something else too." "What's that?" She touched his hand carefully, almost shyly. "I learned that I was wrong about humans. You changed my heart. And now, I cannot imagine leaving your side." Rylan held her hand gently, his voice quiet but certain. Saris stepped closer until they stood almost touching. The wind blew softly around them, carrying the warmth of victory and the hope of something new. She whispered, "Did you think you could defeat me, human? Those were the first words I ever spoke to you." Rylan laughed softly. "And now?" "Now," she said with a warm smile, "I realize I never defeated you. You defeated my doubts, my pride, my old beliefs." Her eyes softened. "You defeated everything inside me that kept us apart." Rylan touched her cheek gently. "And you defeated something in me too." "What?" she asked softly. "The part of me that believed humans could never trust an alien." They stood there, two warriors from two worlds, united not by war, but by the bond they had built through trust, courage, and sacrifice. Around them, the night grew calm. The soldiers rested. The valley remained safe. And for the first time since the war began, peace felt possible. Because one human and one Varathi noble chose each other. Together. And the galaxy would soon learn the truth Saris learned first. No one should underestimate a human, especially the one who changes your heart forever.